Welcome to the Quasi Show. This is Mary Ann. How are you, Mary?
Hey, Marianne. I'm really well, thank you very much. Here in chilly Melbourne and enjoying this sunny day.
Yeah, so today we had a bit of a discussion. What we finished the last show on being response able and taking responsibility. And I guess today we want to do a bit of a part two on that, don't we, Mary?
Yeah, we do. We want to delve a bit more into response able, what it is, and what stops us being response able, stops us taking responsibility.
Yeah. Oh, that's
You
juicy.
see, I'm stealing your word.
It's cool. You can
Oh,
have
here we go.
it.
So there's an interesting thing. What about stealing? See, I just stole your word. Sometimes that makes you feel a little bit guilty. There's another thing that stops you being responsible.
Is it?
Guilt,
Shame. The shame.
shame.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting, isn't it? Secrets. Like we spend a lot of our time with our attention on others. Like, what are they doing? Um, Comparing ourselves to others, having judgment out there, worrying about what other people think. And if we spent all of that time focusing our attention inward about how can I have a better life? How can I feel better about me? Can you imagine the shift, Mary?
Yeah, I can. It actually dovetails right into something I read this morning, and also I've played around with in the past. It's around who am I being? Who am I being? So as well as how can I feel better? Um, how can I be like being with a capital B, as in what are my dreams and hopes and desires? What are my emotions and what am I feeling in order to know how can I feel better?
Yeah, that's great. So, but unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
we weren't programmed or indoctrinated to believe anything really about self-awareness, self-improvement, anything about, growing emotionally. So how the current day is in 98% of the planet really is I will bounce my energy off that person to bounce myself up energetically to feel better about myself. So we often
Right.
live in a world of pure judgment of others to make ourselves feel better, which is not taking responsibility. It's
Oh, it's actually creating that vicious circle, isn't it? Because
yeah,
we also don't want to show who we are. We can't if we're not prepared to be authentic, or we haven't had the opportunity to develop the skills to become authentic, and we're comparing ourselves to others. We're certainly going to hide parts of ourselves that we've already judged as not being okay to show, and therefore people feel that disconnect and view it as secretive or this it's so there's that vicious circle which then stops us being responsible.
yeah, it's interesting because here's a great example. A lot of people, remember, I don't know, the old days. When I say that, is I'm talking about perhaps pre really awake, pre really conscious of my behaviour. And you might sit there with a girlfriend or a couple of girlfriends and have a wine. This is why I really can't stand being with unconscious women anymore. Is because
Unconscious,
I mean, not consciously aware or taking
right?
responsibility. It took
Yes.
me years to really refine a practice of that, releasing those identities. So, I've worked hard at it, so I'm pretty happy with
Yes.
that. But the point is that gossip, right? When we're sitting there and gossiping
Mm.
about someone's life, how terrible they are, or I can't believe that they do that, and blah blah, and we're spending all our attention. It's a real, a lot of. I hope I don't get hate mail, but a lot of women are really good at that because that's what we watched our mothers do. They sat there and blah 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 and gossiped on the phone to their girlfriends and talked about that person and that person. But imagine if we heard, well, I've decided that I'm going to be doing blah, 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 instead of yakking about somebody else's life. Now, here's the thing.
Yeah, just on that gossip, a couple of things. I did some work a few years back with a business leader, and he actually, one of his goals was no gossip.
Yeah.
So that's what he wrote down, no gossip. Secondly, he made a pact with himself that he wouldn't say something about anybody behind their back that he wouldn't say to their face.
Exactly. And I'm pretty frank by name and nature around that, you know. Think of changing the surname shortly, but anyway, another thing. But here's the thing, why do we do it? Well, we want that person's behaviour to be responsible for our comfort zone, right? So we're not comfortable if that person is acting out a scenario that we wouldn't be brave enough to act out, or they're living a lifestyle that we wouldn't be brave enough to live. And so we think we make them wrong in some way instead, and so we're not comfortable with it. So that person that now becomes responsible for my comfort. And that's why people want people to change. And that's why in relationship, whether it be work or home, if somebody's not behaving in a manner that makes somebody feel comfortable, the other pushes against the other to try and make them to change just so I would be more comfortable. And where the golden nugget is if we just focus our attention on ourselves and how to better ourselves about who we're being, but I guess more importantly, to come into a place of self-acceptance or acceptance of the other is really unconditional love, isn't it, Mary?
It is. And once again, Marianne, you've tied up a whole bunch of amazing things in that little short segment. You've talked about how we make other people wrong. That really stood out for me there in what you just said. Gosh, don't we do that? And don't we look at other people's behaviours and go, they shouldn't be like that, or that's not appropriate, or so pretty big. And accepting increasing your own self-awareness, well, definitely a nugget. How and perhaps we can look a bit further into ways we can do this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take a short break and we'll be back in one moment.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
You got the giggles, Mary.
Well, it's funny how we just seem to go down a path and then I go, now where were we? So let's go back to what we started. The main core of what we want to have a chat about today is secrets and privacy. What's private, what's secret, how we judge other people, and then how does that keep us from becoming response-able?
Well, it's really the old coaching saying that we know to help people on their way is, what other people think of me is none of my business, and vice versa, And so why do we make other people's business our priority? Is it to avoid taking responsibility for our own business?
And wonder why we keep some things secret. Why don't we want to just be ourselves? And
like what?
Why do we hide? I don't know, when you do something wrong and you don't want to be found out. I haven't done anything wrong for a really long time. I'm having trouble thinking of something.
You're a saint, Mary. Well, it's as easy as this, right? So everybody has an addiction. What I mean by that is we all reach for relief for something at some time during the week. Some are worse than others. I used to have every addiction under the sun, really. So back then I could say my shame was gambling, drinking, things like that. So that bottle of wine a night that a lot of people are conditioned to do. A lot of men have a lot of shame around pornography. A lot of women have a lot of shame around it. I coach a lot of people around certain things around these addictions. And so what people fail to realise is everybody has that thing going on, you know. We
all have a story, and we all have a
some people can't get off the internet every night because they've got a shopping addiction. Some people comfort eat continuously. Some people, you know, the things that we do behind closed doors, we create this mask and think, I just pray no one can see that in me. And that's what true intimacy is about. You know, they break it down to into me, see. You know, what is someone going to see in me? And it causes so much pain and suffering and so much anxiety that we really, really pump it up and start running others down even more, because we're reflecting or trying to get people away from looking at us. So I can promise you this: if you know somebody that's constantly putting others down, they have more shame and stuff to hide than anybody.
Right.
And everyone listening will be going, oh, I know something. But it's true, because trying to say, don't look at me, and we know, having done so much personal development, that that's just a mirror, right? It's a cosmic mirror that if you say somebody's always...
And we all do it from time to time, don't we?
Of course, absolutely.
And we probably do it 10, 20 times a day. You might walk through the supermarket and judge somebody on what they're wearing or what they've got in their shopping trolley. You know, we're constantly judging people and trying to make ourselves feel better for our own choices. We do that. So it's not a bad thing. It's not wrong, but it's holding us back from being responsible.
Well, imagine if you walked through the supermarket in your own space, focusing on your own adventure, and just appreciating everybody is the same, just like me.
Yeah.
And I remember,
great thing to try too. I can encourage everybody to actually go out there and walk through the supermarket and actually try doing that, because it is quite an enlightening experience, just walking around thinking, well, just like me, that person is.
Yeah, and I did a great exercise with someone once, having suffered from a lot of pain and suffering in my past with addiction and things like that. I don't tolerate people when they judge others. And I had a couple of circumstances. I had one lady that when I was out and about, she looked at this woman who was really overweight, and she went, oh my God, look at her. And I said to her, why do you think she's like that? Do you think she wants to be like that? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, I think maybe what you're seeing is your fear of ever being out of control with your secret eating, or, you know, like how we judge ourselves when we've put on 5 kgs, you know, like it's like...
Yeah, no, I did that for myself the other day, but that you've hit on something really important there, Marianne, just your fear of being out of control.
Yeah, but it's not only that, it's also triggering your own shame about something else. And so that judgment is just... And so I like to correct people or offer them a new viewpoint. And I had a client once, a man, and he was in his... he was an elderly gentleman, and he was suffering from chronic anxiety. He was on multiple tablets. He was going to a psychologist, and his wife recommended that he come and see me. And he thought, oh, I'm not into that hobo jobo stuff, which was EFT tapping, which, you know, the US military vets use to overcome post-traumatic stress disorder. So he thought he'd give it a go. And he was actually starting to cut himself at that age. And so I said, you know, we're going through a lot of scenarios and found the core issues, and we were doing some stuff on that. But then I said to him, you know, what do you actually do during the day? And he said that he watched the news, and it was up to 4 to 5 times a day. So his nervous system was constantly in fear every time he listened to the news. And studies have been done from people not listening to the news for 6 months versus people that do, just how their anxiety levels and even the brain photography changes, the neuroplasticity changes as well. And so we know that whatever you're feeding yourself will constantly do that. But here's the thing. I said to him, why don't you go and volunteer down at your local Sally's? You know, he's got great skills. He could, you know, perhaps drive a van and help pick up stuff or whatever. He said, I'm not going to work with drug addicts. I said, I beg your pardon? He said, I'm not going to work with drug addicts. And I said, who's the drug addict? He said, well, all those people on the street. I said, right. I said, are you aware that you're a drug addict? He said, I beg your pardon? I said, you've been taking drugs, but the prescription from the doctor for years for the same thing that the person not everyone on the street is a drug addict. On some people that are on the street with a drug addiction, they take their drugs, their street drugs, to release themselves from pain and suffering and anxiety, just like you. But yours are just bought ones, like yours are legal ones.
Wow.
And he was shocked that I could have that comparison and an analogy, because it's the truth, right?
Right. Yeah. Wow. What happened next?
He didn't come back.
I know that's not to be laughed at, actually, but that's so that was pretty confronting for him. And yeah, gosh.
Well, it is. And when we point the finger is the point. When we point the finger at anybody about mixed race, or when we point the finger about, you know, what that person does, or they've shamed the family, or things like that, then, you know, what's that thing about point the finger and there's two pointing back at you or something?
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Oh,
what happens if we what happens if we don't clean this stuff up, if we stay in this state of unawareness or not taking responsibility?
Well, you're just pretending.
Yeah.
You're just pretending. Yeah. You're pretending, oh yeah, like how many times do people say, how are you? Oh, good. Would you like to actually feel the answer before responding? You know, tell me the truth. I don't ask people. I just say, how are you feeling right now? And that really hits them in the stomach. You know, how are you feeling right now? It's like, because, you know, it's such a beautiful place to live, as you know, Mary, when you do take responsibility for how you're feeling, how you're showing up in the world, who you want to be, how you want to behave, all of these things. And really, self-acceptance is the path to happiness, isn't it?
Self-acceptance is definitely the path to happiness and peace of mind. And I quite like differentiating between that happiness and peace of mind. I love peace of mind.
Yeah. And what gives you that?
Self-awareness, like that continual process. That, and I'm just being a bit distracted here. I've got two bunny rabbits popping around on my lawn out there.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
So they are so cute. They're very cute. They're not particularly worried about anything else, and they're not particularly worried about. They're just enjoying themselves. And
well, they can run away fast too.
They can run away fast.
So I know that, you know, once again, that fear of being found out, fear of what people might see in me is the cause of all pain and suffering and anxiety. In the workforce, it's such a problem. You know, people not walking the talk.
Yeah, so, I think we might take a little break, because I'd like to talk about this in detail: fear of being found out in the workforce, and also fear of being found out in family life.
Yeah, okay then. All right, it sounds like you're getting serious, Mary. All right, we'll take a break.
Turning up the notches.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Okay, so I promise we're going to notch it up a little bit, because you touched on something that was quite close to an experience that I've had in my family life, which is this fear of being found out. And obviously we can talk about that in family life and in the corporate world. So just to kick it off, I just want to talk very briefly about, we had a family secret that I found out years ago around my great-grandmother, and how she'd been actually abused by her husband and died under quite suspicious circumstances. And this had been completely hidden for 3 generations, but actually caused some distress through the men in the family, and a pattern of abuse, of alcohol abuse and spousal abuse and infidelity proceeded through the family. And it was all about the shame of being found out, the transgressions and what had happened from previous generations had been put aside, like the skeleton, the proverbial skeleton in the cupboard, literally closed the door on it, and everybody thought it would go away.
Yeah,
but it didn't.
Yeah, we've all been brought up with that, sweep it under the carpet, you know,
Yeah.
and don't even acknowledge it. And that sort of, it destroys a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you have to, acknowledging it doesn't necessarily mean it has to become public or a really big issue. It just has to be gently accepted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then people can heal and do something about it. I mean, families are different, right? Let's say that there was a situation where a family was trying to protect another family member, so whatever was going on for them, maybe they didn't approve of it. So in that, you know, there's all sorts of different complications and complex arguments around whose agenda's doing what, and you know. But if everybody just recognised, if it was someone who's been harmed, well, the person's got every right to dive in there and expose the situation. I mean, let's face it. But if to not acknowledge harm and pain and suffering is where we all have a downfall, to not acknowledge our own pain and suffering. And that's why there's always this, you know, if you know someone in domestic violence, or if you know someone who's been abused, for goodness sake, speak up. That's a different thing. You know, the opposite of that. And that's the same in the workplace. If you know somebody has been bullied and you're not contributing to speak up and things like that, it's really detrimental to the whole business.
It is. And what does it take? What does it require of someone to speak up?
Well, it's just being authentic. It's just being authentic, and it comes back to that shame again. But here's the opposite of that, Mary, is when there's somebody in a family that's experiencing something really great. You know, maybe that what they're doing in life, you know, they want to go off and trip around the world and become a poet. And a lot of families will go, oh, we're not telling anybody about that. Oh, no, what's such and such doing? Oh, no, they're good. And, you know, because they're ashamed they're a poet. But that person is really happy. And that can cause so much pain and suffering from that family member not being accepted by their own tribe for what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? And so,
absolutely.
And from there, let's say that the mother or the father was ashamed of their son being gay, or whatever the case may be, and then the son goes through years of addiction and pain and suffering because he's not accepted by his father, when if acceptance was the golden nugget and we focused our attention on, you know, where's the shame in that, where's your problem, Mr. Man, you know, and worked on those parts of ourselves instead of making it the son's fault. You know, and that's when the family wants the children to be a certain way, grow up, go to university, make me proud, so I feel comfortable.
Yes, or I'm rewarded for the hard work or the sacrifices that I've made or the suffering that I've experienced.
Because it makes me look good.
Yeah. Because it makes me look good. That's right. And they are often like very deep indoctrinations or beliefs that that the parents or the family are holding around what is right or wrong, and they're not real. They're not concrete. They're not made of.
And it's because the parents aren't taking responsibility or being responsible to their community, and just being, accepting their children for their decisions and who they are. And this causes so much pain and suffering. It caused me a huge amount of pain and suffering, growing up.
It does. Yeah. And again, I've seen it. I saw the pain and suffering that it caused my own father, and you can see it in many families, the pain and suffering because of an idea, a belief that this is the way it should be, and anything else is wrong or shameful.
Yeah, and it's amazing what happens, right, when you lose a parent. As you have as well, and your grandparents are gone, and the secrets that come out, like just before they're going to pass, it's like the things I found out were like, oh my God, you mean I've wasted 20 years of my life freaking out about it was my fault and it was yours all along?
Right.
Wow. Like, wow.
And what happens with you? I mean, and this is what I mean. Physically, it is felt physically in people.
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel that sense of relief.
Generational trauma. Trauma.
Yeah.
Which is your legacy piece.
Which, it's... so I really encourage people to delve a little bit now if they've got feelings that they can't explain. Like early on, the work that when I first met you, a lot of the work I did was around, I had a whole in-depth feeling about sadness and a puzzle that I just couldn't put together. It was a complete block. Anyway, the pieces have all finally fallen together, but I could feel that then, and I followed that. So sometimes some people like me, who might be a thinker, need to understand the intricacies of past before it falls into place. And so I encourage anybody to have a dig around in their family history if they've got some unresolved questions that they can't quite finger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also, there's so much research now, which I've mentioned before in other podcasts, about how we take on our mother's stuff in the womb and our father's stuff coming from the sperm and the egg. And it's like, there's a genetic and a DNA thread there.
Yes.
And
the field of epigenetics is getting stronger, a lot more evidence around how memory is and how triggers come through in a genetic memory. Yeah,
it's so amazing. I just love looking at that stuff, because it's like, well, hang on a minute, I can't. And a lot of daughters, which we learnt in your legacy discovery, are following their great grandmother's story.
Yes.
Yeah,
we did touch on that. We'll but we're digressing, I think, a little bit.
Okay, Mary.
Because we want to talk, because I did promise, this fear of being found out in the corporate world. Let's touch on that a little bit.
Okay. Did you want a break first, or we just dive in?
Oh yeah, let's have a break.
Okay.
Let's have a quick break.
Okay, back in one moment. Hi, welcome back.
Welcome back. I love you, Marianne, in the way that we have a little break and we'll do a quick reset, and then I'll say something and you go, yep, that can work.
And we don't even get to discuss it until we're live. Okay. So
I've suggested that we delve a little bit deeper into this being found out, this fear of being found out in the corporate world or the business world or any professional environment.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Well, it can mean as simple as the personal life. Okay, let's look at the personal life and the work life. Like, if you're an authentic person, then you show up, whether you're in your personal life or whatever. You decide what's private to you. You don't have to share everything with everybody. I've known people for a long time. I've got a great girlfriend, and she shared something really personal with me the other day. I went, wow, I didn't know that. And it's this magic of unpacking, you know, parts of yourself when you feel safe. And you don't have to disclose your personal life to everybody. If you know the person that you're in business with or in that environment, that you don't A, know them well enough, or B, you don't feel safe with them to discuss intimate details of your life, don't do it. Don't put yourself out there. But how that shame filter can show up in the workplace is pointing the finger at others, or when a boss comes in and is trying to make you accountable for something. People go into fear of, you know, am I actually as good as I say I am? Happens a lot when I go into corporate coaching, and you're shining a torch on somebody's work. And so they go into all sorts of reaction instead of taking responsibility for where they're at and knowing that you're actually there to help them. It can throw up a lot of fear around the secrets of, you know, what do you do? If I do, even doing a productivity timeline, someone can really react badly to that. Like, where are you spending your time? You know, just a simple like
when you start measuring people, it can there's often definitely a fear of being found out that you haven't done enough. Or
so there's certain KPIs. There's certain KPIs you have in a work environment, of course, key performance indicators for people who aren't in that corporate thing. But in your personal life, who are we to measure other people? Who are we?
Wow. Who are we indeed to measure other people?
Yeah, who do we think we are?
Who on earth are we?
Who on earth are we to measure other people? And you have no clue what that person has been through, you know. And I've done quite a few a lot of public speaking in my life, and I've done some stuff around that abuse and behaviours and addictions and things like that. And it's like, before you just judge another on the covered in tattoos, or the deciding to move to Europe, or they're leaving their husband, or they're picking up the kids and going somewhere, before you judge them as, oh my God. I mean, how many murders have there been in Australia where somebody goes, oh my God, I didn't realise that she was being beaten to death, you know, every night. Or I didn't realise that, you know, because nobody knows what goes on. So I always pull myself up and never ever judge that person until I know their story, you know. And who am I to judge another? And it's about compassion, Mary. It's about just like me. And getting people.
It is. I read a little thing the other day. I was reading an article about somebody about the compassionate workplace, and all people becoming response able and becoming more aware in the workplace, and how that actually works as a team. And there is now currently software that you can get, that wearable technology that can trigger that. My daughter used it for swimming a few years ago, so you can share as a group your heart rate and things like that. But the key thing in this was that she was triggered by something that was said during a meeting. And this leads on from, who are we to measure other people? Or so as soon as she was triggered, she went into an emotional state and disengaged from the meeting. So her attention shifted to how she was feeling. So in that kind of workplace, she was able to put up her hand. Well, her co-workers, because they'd come to an agreement around this type of how to work, this methodology, they noticed that she had shifted her attention, and they reacted and said, look, do you want time out? Do you want to? So she was able to bring herself back in.
You mean they responded? They had the ability to respond.
They had the ability to respond because of an agreed way of working. They'd sat down and nutted it out as a team and decided this is how we want to work. And when someone is triggered, you just let the other group, rest of the group know, and we'll give you time and space. And there you go. So she moved back in, and the key in this was how quickly, when we either are afraid of being found out or something in our environment triggers us, we disengage. And that fear or that shame of being found out can then keep us disengaged. But if we are response able, or we're working with a group who have agreed to be response able, we can give each other the time and space to bring ourselves back and re-engage. Wow, what a lift in productivity.
Exactly, what a lift in productivity and revenue, but it's also, it works the same in our personal lives. You know,
Yep.
if we're in a relationship and we work together to be the best version of ourselves by taking care of our own business without engaging in other people's business. And if somebody is in our tribe that is, you know, suffering, then to offer that compassion opposed to judging them for not being good enough. Or how many society groups, cliques and niches do you see out there because somebody lives in a certain suburb, or they wouldn't possibly have somebody, you know, park their bomb outside their place because they only have Jaguars in the driveway or something, you know, like that sort of I'm enough stuff, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, we've both had a little. Marianne, you shared a beautiful video talk with me, a YouTube thing the other day about I Am Enough.
Yeah, Marissa Peer.
Oh,
So
yes,
yeah,
thank you.
she's a hypnotist, and I mentioned her in my book, Our Ultimate Truth. And yeah, she's got some great examples of celebrities that she coaches in Hollywood, and how they suffer all their lives from, you know, severe pain and suffering. She mentioned that Amy Winehouse, she actually, before she passed, Marissa was asked to coach her, and she refused to be coached by her because her belief system was, I'll never be enough. And so no matter what she did, and she did clean up and recover from time to time, but her belief system was so poor that she didn't even think coaching or someone as world
Right.
as Marissa could help her. So the I'm enough, if we all felt enough, we wouldn't hide, would we, Mary?
No, and we wouldn't hide, and we wouldn't also feel it's necessary to exert ourselves onto others or push our own ideas or make it wave, you know.
Yes.
We would be enough. It would be enough. I've
Imagine if every
I
parent
popped
said,
it on my phone as a screensaver. I am enough.
yeah, it's great.
And it's great. It's wonderful.
And if
so
every
simple.
parent told every child, no matter what their decisions were in life, they were enough, then do you think the decisions that child might make would be for the best of humanity?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It would be such a gift to a child. And this is my own experience of being a parent. So many times I have left my kids feeling that they were not enough. And, you know, I've overcorrected at times. And deep down, of course they're enough. I believe they're enough, but did I tell them that enough, that they are enough? Yeah, you do wonder. So that is a beautiful gift, just such a simple and beautiful gift for a child.
Yeah, but it's also a beautiful gift for each other, you know. And all we have to do is focus our attention on our own enoughness to be able to contribute to others and have enough space to contribute to others. And whatever shame that we feel or judgment that we have on ourselves, as soon as we start practicing to come into self-acceptance and enoughness, then our lives will shine, and then we'll have enough genuine ability to be able to go and help others, you know.
Yeah, that is spot on. And maybe, Marianne, that might almost be enough for today. I think we've given everybody
Enough.
enough?
I don't know. I think we have one more short break and come back with some
One more
questions.
short break.
We're going to come back with some solutions and questions, Mary.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Hi, welcome back. Welcome back, Mary.
Welcome back indeed.
Right,
so,
yeah, I'm on a roll.
we started today with what stops us being response able, and we've come full circle almost. No, we haven't come full circle. We've moved on. We've moved on to I am enough.
I think the core is everybody, ask the question, where in your life do you not feel enough? And then recognize, or do you notice that your judgment on others or your projections on they're not enough is because it's where your weakness is, or you're not taking responsibility for your own I'm not enoughness. Like I used to do that. I used to judge a lot of people on having too much money because I didn't have enough. Right. So and
don't worry, I'm doing it quite regularly every day at the moment. There's parts of people that I'm working with that I go, oh yeah, making a big judgment on them, and because anyway, you've triggered a few things in me that again I'm off to work on this week.
yes, and that's the beautiful thing, isn't it? So the more we take responsibility for where in our life do we not feel enough, or within ourselves, and just focus our attention there and start doing personal growth around our own stuff, then we'll not only become a better person, we'll have enough awareness to recognise in others that where their pain and suffering is showing up, to be able to empathise. And these are all the qualities of an emotionally mature person, Mary, and that's all we have to do. And then there is no separation. There is no they're better than me, and because the reason why people live in a certain suburb, have a certain vehicle, drive a certain car and go to the south of France and all of these things is because if they do all that, they'll be enough. They'll be recognised as, oh yes, no, they've made it, they're enough. It's all ego. But when we come into our hearts and go, well, actually, I remember when I gave away all my wealth, and people might say that's crazy. I did a Wayne Dyer at 50 and gave it all away. And it was after earthquakes and marriages and deaths and things. And, I really had a big spiritual clean out. And when I came back to Australia, I recognised that I didn't need any of that stuff. And I started really doing the deepest work of my life. And I'd been doing deep work for what I thought was deep for a couple of decades, but this was deep. And getting to those real core layers. And I've got more than I've ever had, as far as, inner peace of mind, and really money and everything. So it's like working from the inside out, and really finding that part of you that's going to make you happy, not from the material world. You'll get all of the material world as well once you dive inward, Yeah, so if you can feel enough, ladies and gentlemen, walking down the street in a Kmart outfit versus David Jones, something, you're enough.
Very good.
Very
I
good.
am enough.
Yes.
Very good.
So this Christmas, I'd like to leave people with a thought. I don't do Christmas. And the reason is because it really it overwhelms me that I think it was last year that Australia spent $16 billion on Christmas Eve or something. Can you imagine if everybody one Christmas in Australia decided not to exchange presents and put that money into helping others in some way? Like
throw it all into education or something like that.
Or the homeless, or, the people that genuinely want help.
Yeah.
We could get rid of poverty. Like education is the best thing. Yeah.
Education is the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a bit of food for thought,
Interesting thought.
Yeah.
Interesting. or even what if for Christmas, or what if for today, we just believe that other people are enough,
Yes, just as they are. Or, you know, just offer an act of kindness, or
act of
just
kindness,
anything, you
pay it
know,
forward, all
pay
those
it
wonderful
forward.
things.
I know,
Even just one of those wonderful things.
it's just
So
juicy.
I encourage everybody to have a look at this, or just write somewhere, I am enough. It's
Yeah,
a great place to start.
yeah.
And we
And
will become more, we'll become responsible. It does make
yeah,
us responsible.
yeah. And if anybody wants coaching around becoming enough, reach out. Our links are
Yeah.
always below. And please share, like, and subscribe so others can feel that
Yeah.
they're enough as well. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks, Mary.
Good stuff. Thank
Okay.
you, Marianne. It's been enlightening.
All right. Talk to you next week. Ciao.
Cheers.